Hi, my friends. Welcome to this week's episode of Forte Catholic. I'm so glad that you are here. Kathryn Whitaker is my co-host today. We get to celebrate her big birthday and all the great things that have been going on in her life. This is a great time for us to catch up, see what's been going on in her life. Also, I have what I think is the deepest spiritual insight that I've had in quite some time, and I share that as well. We hope you enjoy today's show. If you do, please hit subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. Thanks. Welcome to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll, and that is Kathryn Whitaker. Hello, Mrs. Kathryn. How are you?
Wait, should I just reintroduce myself to everybody? Yeah. I feel like it's been a minute.
It really has. It's really only been a month, but you have had a lot happen in your month. And before we even start, I would like to do something just for you. Happy birthday to you. You live in a zoo. You smell like a monkey. And you act like one too. Happy birthday, Kathryn Whitaker.
Thank you. Oh, it's been such a good, and I still have a good half of the month still left. So I'm not done celebrating yet.
Oh, you're a birthday month kind of person.
Actually, my aunt sent me a letter and she said I should really be a birthday year person. But, right now I'll just stick with the month.
You're not prideful enough for that. I could try to pull it off, but I don't think you're prideful enough for that. Everyone celebrate me all year.
Right. Yeah, it's all about me. Yes. No, I love birthdays, and this one's been especially fun.
Well, this one is special, and I typically wouldn't say, but it has been publicly posted everywhere. This was a big one for you.
50.
50
new decade.
Old.
50. Yeah, it's awesome, actually. I love it so far. Every 50-year-old or above that I've met, they're all like, oh, man, your 50s are so great. So
that's because they forgot how cool it was to be 23 years old.
Listen, there are things about my 20s that I would love to have back, but I'm pretty happy with the 50s so far. I know I'm not that far in, but I'll take it.
Well, yeah, it has been a pretty successful last few days since you turned 50. So
it has.
So, but let's stick there. There's a lot going on, and there's questions. I actually have what I think might be the deepest spiritual insight I've ever had in my life. We're saving that for the end of the show. That's okay. The tease for the end of the show. It was one of those things that I would usually lead with, but I'm just like, I've just been watching your life through Instagram stories, and typically you're a pretty
boring.
No. You're heavy on the stories. Like you.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning you post more stories than most people that I follow, but it's because you live a rich, full life and you like sharing it with us. Great. There's been no comparison to how many stories you have shared in the last week and a half, and I've watched most of them, and I'm very fascinated. But we're going to hone in first because there's so much to talk about. The birthday. So how does one celebrate your 50th birthday? I have 15 years to plan for this, so I would like to know how this went for you.
Well, I started just a little bit before that it was my 10-year-old's birthday, but I claimed it was also my 50th celebration. We kind of scrolled that in there. So
yes, stealing Disney. From the 10-year-old.
yeah. I'm gonna steal from her. Yeah. So we did Disney, and then I went to New York City to see a good friend, and then celebrated with a bunch of ladies at the Given Forum, which is part of the Given Institute, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And then my husband, little stinker, and all my kids threw me a surprise 50th birthday. And then the next day we went to now what is being heralded as the biggest ticketed concert in U.S. history. But when I bought the tickets, I just wanted to go see George Strait. Right. So that was the pinnacle. That was like, I've peaked, and there's really nothing else I can do to top this. So we still have more things to do, but
you peaked in life, and everything from here is.
Oh no, I've peaked in everything. Like definitely, but I wasn't expecting it to be that. I knew it was going to be amazing, but yeah. So those are a handful of things that I've done. We have a few more in store the rest of the month, but those are just a few.
Yeah. What a
keep watching stories, Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. What was funny is on you mentioned the surprise birthday party, and it was a surprise, and I'm interested in how it went because we were scheduled to record that day. You and I were scheduled to record this show right here that day, and then you were like, things came up, but So you knew something came up, but you didn't know about the surprise party? That's the part I'm interested about, because I'm like, wait, you had to cancel because something was happening, but you didn't know the thing was happening? Did you lie to your husband and say that you were
No,
surprised?
I didn't. So no, I didn't.
Oh, yay.
Surprise. No, we had some doctor visits and then some things got shifted around. And so like my pockets of time were like 30 and 45 minutes, but there's no way you and I can squeeze an episode into 30 or 45 minutes. And then Scott,
There's no way you can squeeze your Instagram stories into 30 to
Shut up.
45 minutes.
and so then Scott was like, "Hey, our dinner reservations are early," which he never does them that early. But he was like, "Hey, we have to leave like even earlier than I thought." And I was like, "There is no way that I can record with Taylor, get myself ready, and be out the door." And then I decided that day, which I know that Scott said completely stressed everyone out, which I had no idea. I was
Right.
like, "Hey, we need to do laundry today. Everybody bring your laundry down." And the kids were freaking out. Evidently in the group text that they had created separately from me, they were like, "We're cooked. Mom
Mom's
knows."
the worst. I don't even want to celebrate her anymore. She was so mean to me all day.
That's what tipped it off, is because everyone was being super helpful. Like they were folding laundry like I was running a child labor factory.
Right?
And they're always complaining. And the fact that loads were not just sitting in the washing machine. Normally this is a 2 or 3 day project at our house, and it got done in a handful of hours. So I knew something was up. But when I sent the note to you, I had no idea. I just was like, wow, dinner reservations are early. So, but then they were being super helpful. And I even asked Scott, "Did you bribe them? Like, are you doing this for my birthday, like to make laundry less painful?" And he's like, "No, I think they were just being helpful." And I was like, I feel like something
Nah,
might be
not
up.
my kids. Yeah.
Felt like something might be up, but I was surprised, and it ended up being a really great day.
That's really fun. That's really fun. I'm
Yeah.
glad you got surprised, because when you texted me, like it's happened before. It's not the worst thing in the world. You know, we're recording one business day later. Like, it's not a big deal. But I was kind of like, she must have known if she canceled
No.
it. You know, like
No,
So I was
and
like
then
sad for you, but now I'm happy to hear that you
No.
are surprised.
I was surprised, and we also squeezed an Inside Out too, which was fantastic. So it was just a full day of just a lot of things, and then I was expecting to get a good night's rest before we went to the concert, and no, we went to bed at I did not Taylor, this is how fun it was. For a week and a half, I did not go to bed before 1 AM. I haven't pulled that off since my 20s. On Sunday, I came home, I was like, "Can I just take a nap? Because I'm exhausted." But it was
Right.
super fun. I'll take it.
Yeah, that's the 50-year-old talking.
That's how we know. Yeah, that was it right there.
Okay, so you and I have talked before about, well, we talked quite a bit about Texas A&M, but we talked about my first experience at a Texas A&M Aggie football game at, Kyle Field, this huge stadium. It's the fourth largest stadium in America, college, pros, everything. It's the fourth largest place where people can be held in the United States of America. And this old fart comes to town and breaks records. And like, what was interesting to me is, like, I'm not a huge country fan, but like, I'm in a country town, so I know a ton of people really like him. But this was like a way bigger deal than I thought it was going to be. It's weird to me that I was like, I live here and I'm 10 minutes away, and I was 10 minutes away from like the biggest music event that has happened in America's history. And I'm just hanging out playing video games.
Just here at the house.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we knew it was going to be big. I mean, the stadium holds on a game day, we've been around 103 or so thousand people,
Right.
but it never dawned on me that we might be record breaking. I mean, I knew it was going to be a big deal. Like George Strait coming to Kyle Field is not a small thing, but it never dawned on me. And then when he came out on stage and he said 110,000 people, and also when we walked into the stadium, I was shocked at how it feels big. But when you clear out the football field and you put down all the boards that they had to set all the chairs on, and then that massive stage in the round, I mean, for a second, Scott and I just stood there and I was like, what has happened to Kyle Field? And also super weird to be in Kyle Field and not be surrounded by a sea of people in maroon clothes. I think it will be the only time ever that I did not wear maroon in a Kyle Field.
Right.
Super, like a super random fact, but it was just it just felt huge. And then, of course, when they announced it the next day, hey, it was a record-breaking concert, I was like, yeah, I believe that. It's pretty loud when he came out, which was fantastically awesome.
It was fun. It was really cool to see
Oh my
pictures.
gosh.
So I play in a monthly poker league, and one of the guys that was at my table in the poker league is a professional photographer. And I was actually like kind of like we were poking fun at each other. He was making fun of me for being a podcaster. I was making fun of him for being a photographer. Like they are strange professions, like about both of those are
Right.
strange professions, and which you have done both of, you freaking
I
weirdo.
have.
So it would have been great if you were at that conversation because we would have stopped making fun of each other and both pointed and laughed at you.
Made fun of me. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. But he ended up taking one of the picture of the stadium that ended up being like the picture of the weekend. I think it then
Right.
got trumped by there was a picture. It must have been either a drone or something.
Oh, the aerial photo. Yeah.
Way above the stadium. But there's one where he's at the top of the stadium and it shows the whole stadium filled and it announces that it's record breaking and the right in front of him. So it's one of those shots where it's like you see the whole stadium far away, but right in front of them is two people wearing cowboy hats. And it's just like the most Texas picture
Nice.
you've ever seen at this, country. Like it's a very Texas picture. And so it's just really funny. I'd made fun of him the night before and he took his he's probably your age. He's probably 50-ish, maybe even a little older. And he's been a professional photographer for years. And I would imagine, I'll have to ask him next time I see him. I would imagine that's his most popular picture he's ever taken. And he did it 20 hours after I made fun of him professionally. So I feel like he's one of those guys that takes criticism well.
Evidently. It was, and the crazy thing, Taylor, is that it was that full until the very end. I mean, of course, he finishes the show and a few people around us left. And I was like, y'all are idiots. They always come out for an encore. Like, what are you doing? This is the king of country music. Why are you leaving? So a handful of people left, but not that many. And then he comes back out. I mean, until he sang Cowboy Rides Away, which is how he finished the concert, the stadium was completely packed. I mean, it took us forever to get out. Forever. But it was 100% worth it. We've been singing George Strait songs straight, pun intended, for like the last two days. I mean, we have a set list and now we've made a playlist out of it. And because he did a Tom Petty cover. I mean,
that was my favorite part because I'm a huge Tom Petty fan, even though he hates Catholics, which is weird. It's a one-way like. I really like him. He really doesn't like me. Well, I mean, he's in hell now, so what do I care? But great musician. One big part of my childhood, which like country music wasn't. So I was like, hey, I know this one.
I know this song. Yeah, I mean, I don't know too many people who have a band that everyone knows the name of their band. So everyone knows that George Strait's band is called the Ace on the Hole Band. And they just, Taylor.
These chicks don't even know the name of my band. That's the one I know.
If you are a country music fan, then you know that George Strait's band is the Ace on the Hole Band. But I mean, they just slayed it. I mean, every component of that. Plus, I mean, Katie Kofferman opened. She was the first opener. And then Parker McCollum was the second. And it was his birthday. Are you kidding me? He said he thinks he's the only musician to play Hurricane Harry's, The Tap, and Kyle Field. So Hurricane Harry's and Tap are like two bars in town. So it was really fun to like hometown people that were playing, and he had great energy too. So it was just a stellar lineup of outstanding musicians.
I saw people post about Hurricane Harry's, and my wife went there once. Not our seed, but we went there one time, and so I know what it is. And so he is local, or he's just played local?
He's a Conroe boy, and he grew up coming to A&M football games, and so as a musician, I think he played some of the local places first. But I thought it was interesting that he said, "Hey, I played these two places, and now I can add Kyle Field."
That's so cool.
He said that he had tweeted out, I think it's like an off thing a few months ago, like, hey, like bucket list thing, like, wouldn't it be fun to play Kyle Field? And then he gets the call from George Strait's folks and was like, hey, by the way, I think they're all on the same label, but still to get that call, I mean, I can only imagine like that would be like a on my knees, thank you, Jesus kind of moment. Like, I can't believe this is my life. And then he ends up playing it on his birthday. I was like, man, it doesn't get any sweeter than that.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I need to tweet out more dreams, I guess. Maybe one of them will
Moral of the
hit, you know?
story. Tell people your dreams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I do that, and they're just like, "Yeah, you ain't gonna do that." I'm like, "Thanks, friend." I don't know.
Well, and like, so from perspective, some people may be like, who the heck is Parker McCollum? He sings a song that you've probably called it's called Hell of a Year. And the funny story about that one is just before he sang it, you should Google it if you haven't heard it. But he said he wrote the song in the Whataburger parking lot while he was waiting for his burger. And he said only Texans can appreciate the fact that you can write an entire song
Yeah.
while waiting for your Whataburger
I'm surprised
burger.
he didn't do the whole album. Yeah.
Right.
I went to a Whataburger on our state track meet because it's Whataburger is the closest restaurant to the meet, and like at the state meet, any meet it's hard for me to get away, but especially at the state meet, you don't want to miss anything. I go to Whataburger. I was there for like a genuine 45 minutes. I'm like, guys, I gotta go. You know.
Yeah, I think he had time to write it, produce it, and record it. But he had plenty of time.
The choir
such a
is
good
just
song.
the rest of when the choir hits, it's just everyone in Whataburger. You hear beeps and sodas being drawn out.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of dreams, we're going to pivot to one of the other things. Your family kept secrets from you, and you kept a very big secret from me by you have accomplished my dream, which is being a host of a radio show on SiriusXM's The Catholic Channel. And you kept this quite a secret from me. I work on every one of your other shows, or this one. You're on this one. I work on your other two podcasts, and you completely kept this a secret from me. I'm flabbergasted that you're now doing a show with Rachel Pullman on SiriusXM's The Catholic Channel, and you never told me.
Only because we hadn't talked, and then it got to the point that I was like, I couldn't remember. I think we just kind of kept it under wraps, and then when we announced it, I was like, we're just going to go big and just announce it to everyone at the same time. But if you and I had recorded, I would have absolutely told you on the DL, like, hey, this is happening. But yeah, it launched last Thursday, so it's Thursdays, and it is every Thursday for the next 4 weeks. So we're skipping 4th of July for obvious reasons, and then July the 11th. It's like a 4-part series. It's called Strong Women. So we are 2 women hosting. Our producers are women. Our guests are women. Although you can call in and not be a woman. You can be a man and call in. But
I could call in as a woman. That's the beautiful thing about calling.
You can call in and be whoever you need to be, Taylor. So I really am enjoying it. It's just an hour, and it's the perfect sweet spot. And Rachel is if you don't know who Rachel is, she's the mom of 6. She's also married to a deacon in the church, but Rachel's about 10 years. I guess she's probably about 10 years younger than me. But she's got such a great wisdom of theology of the church. She's a real intellectual, but she's also relatable. And I think she adds so much to the conversation. And plus, she's just an amazing human being. And I consider her a dear friend. So it's a real joy to get to do radio with someone that you love. So.
Yeah, you haven't had that experience before.
No, this is podcasting. This is different. Actually, you know what? That's interesting because when we were talking to the station manager or like the program director, he said, yeah, remember, radio is not like podcasting. So it's a different sort of energy when you're on the radio versus podcasting. So I'm learning that.
No, it isn't. It really isn't. I did radio for 3 years. It's the same thing. You talk into a microphone and people listen. The only difference with podcasting is they actually have listeners. So there is a difference.
Stop. You can see your demographic and your numbers. Yeah, that's I guess the difference there. But I think we're going to stand up. I'm going to stand up and do the show.
I love that the radio guy is down on podcasting when he's just mad. Podcasting just made his job a little more obsolete. So that's very funny to me that the executive thinks that. I like that a lot.
Well, it has been the difference with podcasting. So like if I screw up here, which happens often, you're like, well, you tell me that you'll edit it out, but you don't. You just keep it in. But we have the potential to edit
comedy.
out.
Yeah.
But in radio, it's like
people have actually accused us of editing out the comedy because we keep saying there's comedy, and they're like, "Where is it?" I'm like, "Oh,
Where?
Kathryn asked me to edit it out." Yeah.
Kathryn asked me to make her look good. Well, you get fully unedited raw, Rachel and Kathryn, because we don't get to edit anything out. I mean, it really is live, and so yeah, we gotta hit all of our time marks and do all the things. But I totally love it, and I'll tell you, like, I know that it's live and I know that it's broadcasting live, but it feels like just a really good conversation with someone that I love, and then we have great guests, so it doesn't. And I'm also sitting in the same place where I do my podcasting, so it doesn't feel like, it's not like I'm going to a studio to record it. So it still feels, I guess, very, very much the same. It's just but different, I guess. I don't know how to explain that. I didn't get nervous, I'll say that, like, and maybe it was because Rachel was there, but we had a lot of fun.
That's very exciting. I'm happy
It
that
is
it happened.
exciting.
I didn't know it was only a four part thing. I hope the tryout goes well.
It is, yeah, this is like our, trial period. We'll see if people, like it, and if they do, we might be around longer, and if not, that's okay. I think that it gives us an opportunity to have conversations with people that I'm really interested in, and Rachel is too, about what they have to say, and we say that it's focused on what women are doing for, with, and in the church, and so those are great conversations to have, and there's not a lot of females right now on the channel, so to have the 2 of us there feels like a great opportunity, and we'll see what, as I think it's St. Gianna Molla says, "Whatever God wants." So far, we're having a lot of fun, and I'll take that as a win.
That's good. This is I am happy for you, but I do
Thank
have
you.
this internal conflict within myself, because there are my dream before you and the 3 other women that I'm going to I won't mention, but I will they exist. You exist, clearly. These other 2 women exist. I guess I can say one of. Anyway, there are 3 women that I have assisted in trying to help them get a job on the Catholic channel in some shape or fashion. That has been my dream before it was any of those 3 women's dream. I don't think those 3 women knew the Catholic channel existed when my dream started more than a decade ago. That's been a dream of mine for quite some time. And I submitted my own, hey, I think I'd be good for this. And no response. And then 2 of those 3 women are now working for the Catholic channel that I helped behind the scenes at some point, right? And I can't decide if I'm mad or if I'm just a really sacrificial and loving person. I'm mad at myself for doing the right thing, is essentially where it is. Because I'm just like, hey, I helped 2 other people achieve my goal, but I didn't even get a response back, which makes me feel like I practically lived out the humility prayer, even though I hate the humility prayer. So,
we all hate the humility prayer. Taylor, let's be honest, okay?
I hope that the SiriusXM the Catholic channel prefers all other people to me, and that came true. I don't understand.
Well, I think sometimes, Taylor, I'll say this, the very first time that I sort of, I guess, threw my hat in the ring at the Catholic channel, the show that I wanted, I did not get. Katie McGrady got it, and she's killing it, and she's doing an amazing job. And I look back now, but it would have been a terrible season of my life to do it. And I think that she's the right person for the job. So I told her the other day, I'm not telling you anything that I haven't already told her, but I said, man, that one was like hand carved out for you in the season of your life and and she's good, really, really good at it. And I think, man, if I had gotten what I wanted, I think Jesus had other things in store. And so I don't know, Taylor, what he's going to do with this, but I'm just grateful that I get to do it again. I mean, I've had some occasional like limited series on there, and it's been so fun, and maybe that's just all it's going to be. And if that's it, I am perfectly content and happy with that. And if it's more, so I think sometimes, all the time, I should say, God sees the longer game bigger than we do, and he knows, like, oh, in 5 years or in 10 years or in 15 years, this is what it's going to look like. So he hasn't ever steered me wrong. I mean, I think in the moment there have been times that I'm like, Jesus, what are you doing here? Really need a game plan here. I'm not seeing what you're seeing. But usually 5, 10 years later, or even less time later, I'm like, okay, yep, you actually did. No, well done. Bravo. I'm glad that I did not know the bigger plan, because I may not have been as content as I am now. So I say that to say, maybe I think that there are some people, Taylor, like, you're really gifted in what you do. So even if the channel doesn't have a place for you, that doesn't mean that you're not still gifted in all the ways.
I wish someone with money has said that.
Sorry. But I've got lots of love, just not lots of money.
Yeah, thank you. There was a had a thought this week because I was talking about some, money has been tight. And I was talking about this with another person in ministry where money has been tight. And so we were, it was kind of one of those, we were, what is it? Well, like the airing of grievances. We were both just kind of airing our grievances, but then also trying to console one another and like, what are some other practical ways out of this? What's worked for you? What's worked for you? And it was funny because they said the one thing that I joked about this with them in person. So I'm not saying that they said something that pissed me off and then I'm just airing it here on the show. But I told them this and we kind of laughed about it. But they were like, well, sometimes I just have to remind myself that we're storing up treasures in heaven. I'm like, well, if I store up treasures on earth, I can make a withdrawal. Like I can go to the bank and be like, hey, I gave you this thing. I deposited this. I would like it now, please. I can't do that with my heavenly. You're gaining all the heavenly riches. You'll have a mansion in heaven. I'm like, I don't know, man. I kind of just want a better house now. Can I make a withdrawal, please? I would like to make a withdrawal from my heavenly bank account. And everybody's like, no, you can't do that. There's taxes and penalties. I'm just like, please.
I don't know this for sure. I think when we get to heaven, we're going to be like, okay, like now, like God willing, we all get there. We'll see that it was all worth it.
Yeah. God willing, we'll see. That was my favorite thing. Yeah. It's not what you meant, but like God willing, we'll see. We'll see if we see each other there.
You knew what I meant. Thanks for twisting my words, Taylor. Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah, no editing at all. I didn't even
no editing necessary. I do it all for you. Yeah.
Well, that's very good. I'm glad your life has been going swimmingly. I'm glad that the Lord told you no, and then you saw his plan later. He told me no, and I still haven't seen him at work. So we're living different lives.
Hey, I don't say all that stuff. I mean, I'll say this. Life has been very full, and there have been some really good, like to quote Inside Out too, there have been some really outstanding core memories that we've stored in the bank. But there have also been some really hard things. Father's Day was recently, and I don't have an earthly dad to hug anymore. And so I think with all those moments of great joy, I mean, I think that God hands us those to remind us, like teeny tiny eyedropper full of a glimpse of heaven, of what it can be, knowing that that's not where we permanently live our lives. Like I'm not permanently going to live my life at a George Strait record-breaking concert as much as I would like to, but I know that he gave us those moments of joy to be like, man, I hope that you just soak every second of this up. And then when some other hard stuff comes, you'll come back to this moment and remember how much you're loved and how much you're celebrated. But that's not where we live perpetually. I think most of us live closer to the cross than we do to Calvary.
And you'll break another record whenever you go to heaven. Whenever you walk through the gates, you'll break the record for most people ever in heaven. And then when I get to heaven, I will have broken a record of longest time spent in purgatory. So both of us, you broke a record this week. I was 10 minutes away from the record breaking. That's essentially where purgatory, that's where I'm going to be. Like I was close to the record, but I wasn't quite there. And you and I, because of how we live our lives, we're both halfway through our lives. You're halfway to 100, which is probably around your lifespan. And I'm halfway to 68, which is probably pushing it for me. So, we're both halfway there. I'm really happy for both of us.
I hope you're not quite halfway there. That's my hope.
Not quite. Almost. Just almost.
No, not quite. You still got some years to go.
It's a race between me and you, and I think it's actually a pretty good race.
Oh my gosh, you're killing it.
Even though you have quite the head start, I think you still might win this race. So I joke a little bit about the Lord not speaking to me, but every joke has a little bit of truth in it because it doesn't happen often. But I did have quite the insight at a mass with Father Anthony, and ironically enough, it had nothing to do with anything he said, which is probably why it worked out. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back, and I'm going to tell you about the deepest spiritual insight I've had in a year. Don't go anywhere. As you may know, Forte Catholic is a nonprofit organization, which means that we rely on the generosity of our donors. Money has been pretty tight here at the beginning of this year and into the summer, so we could really use your help. There's a couple of ways that you can do that. If you have appreciated anything that we are doing here, trying to share the joy of the gospel online in a place that really needs it, both here on the podcast, on our social media channels, all those sorts of things, we could really use your support. The main way that you can support is at fortecatholic.com/donate. You can set up really easily through PayPal. It's pretty simple. You don't have to have an account. You can just put in your debit card, credit card information, however you want to do it, bank account. It is all tax deductible. You can give a one-time gift, or you can set up a monthly donation. We've had people give one-time gifts that help us through some light times financially, like now. Also, our monthly donors help the light times come a little less frequently. We have people giving monthly from $5 to $25, $50, $100, $250 a month, and even more. So we would really appreciate your support. Another way that you can support right here in Apple Podcasts, if that is indeed where you are listening, we have a new thing called Forte Plus, which is where you can subscribe. Essentially, it's kind of like a bonus channel right there in your Apple Podcast feed. You get stuff that doesn't exist anywhere else. Like, we have all of the audio versions of our Catholic Perspective series, which is our pop culture series, available, ready to go. And also, over the course of this summer, we are releasing the Foundation series that I've talked about for quite some time on the show, in audio version for the first time, releasing once a week. So if you want to try that out, it is $5 a month. All that support really helps. If you don't want to do that part, the last way that you can help that is free is to go subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Forte Catholic, and watch the videos. So you can make Google give us their money instead of you having to give us yours. So however you can help, we would really appreciate your support at this time. ForteCatholic.com/donate, or go watch on YouTube. Yay! Thanks. Enjoy the rest of today's show. Welcome back. I am Taylor, and that is the youngest looking 50-year-old I've ever seen in my life.
Thank you, Taylor. I paid you to say that.
You are one of the youngest 50-year-olds, because how many other people turned 50 this week? So,
yeah.
I literally thought about this in the 20-second break that we took in between segments. I have a new way that we're going to start this segment. I thought I was just going to jump right in to my spiritual insight, but in the fashion of this show, I can't jump into the deep spiritual insight without making you uncomfortable first. I think that's how
good.
This show
I was going to say,
works.
please make fun of me. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that's the Taylor I know.
Okay, here we go. So, for the readings at Mass, a normal Sunday Mass. So we're not talking Easter Vigil. We're not talking a daily Mass. But there is the first reading, which is almost always from the Old Testament. Actually, it gets weird during Lent. But let's just say the most general. Old Testament reading. And then there's the Psalm, which is also the Old Testament. But it's Old Testament, specifically Psalm. And then New Testament reading, not the Gospels. And then the Gospel. So we have 4 readings. First reading, Psalm. Second reading, Gospel. Rank them in your order of favorite to least favorite.
Least favorite for sure is the second reading.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
It doesn't always correlate with, like, the theme isn't always, I guess, carried out. Not that it has to be exact, but it always feels like sometimes like a little bit of an outlier.
You're talking about in, like, theme of the 4 readings, like there's a running theme in your. I see. I hadn't thought about that before. Interesting.
After having gone to the Holy Land, I think the Gospel is now my favorite, because what used to feel abstract feels very real. So when they say Jesus was walking in this place, or he was standing here, we've been to many of those places, and so now it feels like I just revisit a place in my memory that I have actually seen, and not some place that I've created in my mind. So that one, if you'd asked me that question, a year and a half ago, I might have had a different answer. So that's a hard one between the Psalms and the first reading. I'm gonna let them tie. I'm gonna break your answer and let them tie, because the praise and worship gal in me really loves the singing part of the Psalms. I think it's really beautiful, but I think I probably listen better with the first reading than I am the Psalms. I'm listening to the response, but not always what we sing in between. And the first reading is always a little bit of a sucker punch, because the Old Testament, you thought our lives were hard, just go back to the Old Testament. So it's always a perspective builder, that one. Yeah. So if I had to rank them, that's what I'd say.
Okay. I think mine would be slightly different, but I understand yours. I think for me, the Gospel's number 1, because I think it is the most consistently practical to our lives. Like Jesus is either teaching, or he's performing a miracle, or it's something that, like, it is so consistent in applying to our lives, where, like, the second reading could be, it's either, like, very directly saying, like, hey, this is how you should live. Like St. Paul writing a letter and be like, hey, this is what a moral life looks like. Like, sometimes it's very applicable, and other times he's just like, dear Theophilus, please leave my cloak with Timothy. I'm just like, okay. I guess the lesson is don't forget your cloak places. I don't know. I don't get the practicality there. The Old Testament is so hit or miss. It is either it's either third place or first place, depending on the day. Because it's either the most crazy, outlandish story, where it's just like, wait, what? Or it's just like, make sure you clean your cups before you eat. I'm just like, okay, right? So I think ultimately I'm going to go gospel. I'm going to go Old Testament just because the first reading, just because there's the chance that it's the best reading. So I'm going to go ahead and put it second. I'm going to put the second reading third just to confuse people, but it's also how we do it at Mass. We say it's the second reading, but it is also the third reading that we do. Very confusing. And I'm going to put the Psalm last, even though I'm the musician. And I think that might even be part of the reason why it's last, is because 99% of the times I struggle to pay attention during the Psalm, because this is where, I was just looking at my book, reading along with the first reading. And now I'm like, because of how my brain works, I hear the reading and now I'm like thinking about how the first reading applies, and wow, that was crazy. And then we're halfway through the Psalm and I'm like, I didn't listen to the first two stanzas, and now I have to try to sing along, and I'm trying to remember, wait, what was the melody? Oh, I actually think I could have written a better melody. Why are they doing it this way? Oh, he actually sang the melody the worst time. He didn't come in what the pianist thought he was going to come in. Then I'm like behind. I'd missed the first two stanzas, so now I'm going back and reading the first stanza and the second stanza, but he just read the third stanza. Now I'm trying to sing again, and then I'm trying to read the third stanza while he's doing the fourth, and I'm just very confused, and I get stressed out during the Psalm because I never know what I should be doing, and I feel like I'm always doing the wrong thing. And then my kid's like, can I go to the bathroom? I'm like, we just got here. Can you wait? It's this whole ordeal where, like, that's the rapidity with how much my brain is moving during the Psalm is very quickly, but very much not accomplishing anything. So it's last.
No, you made me stressed out thinking about that. I will say
that was the goal. I tried very hard to imitate what was going on in my brain.
But if you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, I would have told you gospel's last place, because it's the reading that I never get to hear. Because we used to consider it a success at Mass if we made it to the second reading without having to go to the narthex. Right. So I never, for years, I never heard the gospel. I was like, I hear that we say them, never heard them. So for a long time, I was just like, barely to the second reading, and then I'm like, and we're done. Mass is over.
I've been in church for 15 years. Never heard about that Jesus guy, though. I'm really confused why he's on the walls. He doesn't seem to be the main character.
How many years have we been reading that one? So, but I think that there are seasons of our life when certain readings hit you a little bit different. And I think after having teenagers, gospel just feels, and I think it matters too, Taylor, whether the priest delivering the homily gives you context. A lot of times what our priests do is they give us context as to what the readings have been building up throughout the week through daily Mass. And then, so it's part theology, but part applicability to your life. So we're going to interpret the scriptural basis for this, but then we're also going to talk about how does this apply to your life. And so it's a little bit of a two-parter. It doesn't always happen that way, but when it works that way, it's pretty fabulous.
Yeah. So all of this to set up the absolute miracle that happened to me, because the Lord spoke to me through the Psalm at Mass, and it was like my deepest spiritual insight, and like absolutely something that I needed to hear. And I've been like pondering it for 8 days now, because it was, we're recording this on Monday. This goes out Tuesday. So it's like, pretty quick turnaround because you had to go celebrate your birthday or something. But the week before, the Sunday before, I went to Mass with the old Father Anthony Sciarappa, because I was in Pittsburgh hanging out with him right before I went to speak at Catholic Family Land. That, we recorded our last episode was the live from Pittsburgh episode. Very fun. Okay. So I went to Mass after we recorded the episode, because we recorded last week's episode on Saturday, and then I went to Mass with him on Sunday. And typically, in the past, when I've gone to his Masses, like, he's a very good homilist. Like, I usually really think about his homilies, listen to his homilies. Not this time. It wasn't him at all. Wasn't anything he said. He actually gave a very good homily. But the one reading that he discarded, the Psalm, and that's the one that really stuck out to me. So, wow. I will wait. There's like one person listening the 1% of the 1% of the 1% that remembers the Psalms from not this past weekend, but the one before. So I'll save it for a big reveal here in a little bit. But I'm going to set it up by saying, as a cradle Catholic, and I would imagine, I mean, you were a cradle prot. We've talked before about your many houses of worship before you landed here at the Catholic Church. But I growing up, the one thing that was like very much like kind of slammed into me, but in a good way, is just how merciful God is. Like, confession, big deal, right? So like, God is so merciful. He never tires in mercy. He's always ready to forgive you. And all you need to do is go to confession. Like, that has been just absolutely pounded into me as a Catholic, but also because of Catholic, there's this guilt thing. And like, I think one of my first talks that like really kind of like got me into the whole Catholic speaking thing, like one of my first talks that I would give pretty often was about like Catholic guilt must die. Like, this guilt has to go away. And I feel like I kind of worked through it, like a similar thing. Like, God revealed something to me. I worked through it. I gave the talk, continued to work through it. And I thought it had gotten better. I thought I had kind of rooted this Catholic guilt out of my life until I heard last week's psalm, and I go, uh-oh, I don't think I believe the words that we just sang 6 times in a row. And here it is. Okay. 2 weeks ago, psalm. With the Lord there is mercy is the first half. It's like, yeah, I'm down with that. He always gives us mercy. He's always gonna forgive us. Fantastic. Really happy to hear that, right? But then the second line is what really hit me. And fullness of redemption. With the Lord there's mercy. Yeah, he'll forgive you. And then I kept, with the Lord there is mercy and fullness of redemption. And I got to the second half and I'm like, wait, what? Fullness of redemption, I don't think I ever really thought about before. And like, we say things as Catholics. I even made the joke earlier. It's like, I'm going to spend a lot of time in purgatory. Like, there's this idea that, yes, God is merciful and he'll forgive me, but he'll never look at me the same way again. I'll never actually be as loved or as esteemed by the Lord as I was before I did X, Y, and Z sin, or continued doing X, Y, and Z sin, or did that X, Y, and Z sin again and again and again over and over. And I immediately had this thought of like a king and their like right-hand man, right? Because I've been watching a lot of king shows and I've been playing a kings and princes video game. So it's like, it's been so this is how the Lord speaks to me, through my video games and going to the psalm, right?
Hey, he can use all things, all mediums.
Right. Hopefully not actual mediums. I've never seen one of those before.
Okay, yeah,
He uses all means, but no mediums. Okay. So I was thinking about how like God is the king in the court, right? Like he's the king. That's not a hard stretch, right? But I imagined myself, because at least in my story, I'm his right-hand man, right? And maybe that's the pride thing coming in, but this is how the thing was coming. It's like, I'm his right-hand man. And I've been doing all these things for the Lord. I've given my life to ministry in the church. It's like, I'm in, even if I'm not his right-hand man, I'm like on the council, right? So I'm his right-hand man. And then I sin. I make a mistake, and I've been in service to the Lord for a long time. So let's just say I've been this knight, and I'm the right hand knight, and I mess up, and I'm like the king's like, look, you've been in my service for quite some time. I forgive you. All is good. And I'm like, okay, great. The Lord is merciful. The King is merciful. Fantastic. And then 3 weeks later, I mess up again. And he's like, all right, man, like, you were serving me for quite some time, but kind of the 3 strikes you're out kind of thing. Like, you messed up again. And then I'm like, okay. And he's so merciful and I'm so thankful. I'm like, I'll never mess up again. And then the next day, of course, what do? I'm a screw up. I mess up again. So what I always thought that God would do is like, he's merciful to a point, or he's always merciful and he'll always forgive me, but I'm going to lose my standing very quickly. Because my thought was, look, you keep sinning, you keep doing this mistake over and over again. I'm still going to forgive you because I'm a merciful Lord, but you just lost your standing as my right-hand man. You're actually no longer part of this court. you're actually, you're a peasant again. Actually, get out of my castle. Go live amongst the peasants. You lose your title, you lose your rank, you lose your house, you lose your money. You just lost everything because you lost my trust, essentially, right? And that's how I have always thought about my relationship with God. Of like, I've messed up so much, and like, I've never doubted his mercy because I think it's beat into me pretty well that, the Lord is kind and merciful. But this idea of fullness of redemption, that like I probably deserve to be out in the peasant thing. And he's like, you know what? I actually want you to work back. And I actually do want to like restore you to full standing with me, stand at my right hand again. I was blown away because I never really believed that like key element of our faith before. And I'm 34 years old. And I think I just realized something that most people probably got when they were died,
Does his love make you uncomfortable, Taylor?
I don't think it makes me uncomfortable. I think it's not believing that I'm like worthy because of all the times that I've made a mistake. I think I deserve to be the peasant, not his right-hand man. I think that's what I deserve.
So you don't think you're worthy of his love?
Yeah, that's it.
That's not true, right?
I think so. I think like I kind of, this was kind of like a big spotlight on this thing that I didn't know that I believed in correctly, and when you put a spotlight on something, it's usually because it's been ignored for a long time. So like the cockroaches are scattering and stuff, but I'm like, I've believed that lie for so long that it's now been 8 days that I don't think I believe the lie, but I'm still trying to struggle to like get out of the pit of that. Because I think I live my life as the like, I screwed it up. I lost my chance. I'm just going to go live the peasant life now, and nothing's ever going to get better. I think is kind of how I've been stuck for a long time. So this was a good insight, I think.
I think that's beautiful. I think, by the way, I ask you those questions because I too struggle with those things. So it's not like I'm putting you on the spotlight, but I think we all feel uncomfortable to feel loved that completely. To have someone know intimately all of our deepest, darkest things, whether we say them to him out loud or not, he knows them. And then to be loved fully, no matter what choices we make. And then, like you said, when we go and we ask for mercy and forgiveness, believing that the slate is wiped clean every time and all of that's restored fully is such a foreign concept to human beings who are fallible. And I think it's hard to wrap your mind around someone that can be that, because we don't have anyone else that we know in our life, even our spouses, our kids, like no one loves us quite like that. It's a hard thing to grasp. So I think if you're 8 days in and you're already starting to believe it, I'd say you're well ahead of most people,
Right.
Taylor. Like I say that for most of us, that's a lifelong thing.
I mean, I think it still is. Like, I don't think it's solved, but it's just like I was shown the problem for the first time. It was just a problem that I never really realized was there, right? And it was just like they made very clear. So like the whole time, the whole rest of the like mass, essentially, I'm thinking about this, right? And I'm just like, wait, what? And like thinking through the whole like, I was literally picturing like a kingdom, right? Like, oh, like, where I actually am, where I think I am, where God says I am, where the listeners think I am. And they're all four different places, like.
Right. It's a little bit of a mind bender.
Yeah. My mind has been bent for sure. Yeah. I think because like, it's given me insight too into like, this isn't particular for me. This next part, but it's like stories of redemption are our favorite stories. Like
they are.
I've been watching sorry to mention it on a Catholic thing, but I've been watching House of the Dragon. I think it's one of the greatest shows ever, which is a follow up to Game of Thrones. And like, people can think what they want about Game of Thrones, but like one of the best stories ever told is like the redemption arc of Jaime Lannister. Ironically enough, he screws it up at the end, and that's probably what I think I would do. But like he has this redemption arc that if he just stopped it when his redemption was done, it would have been fine. And then the last season they ruined it, which pissed everybody off. But that's more about the writers of the show ruining the end of the show than I think Jaime. But he was like I've done this thing, I've done that thing, I've done so many things. I'll never be able to be a good man. I'll never be able to be a gentleman. I'll never be able to be a good knight. I'll never be able to be all these things, right? And he has this moment where he is, and at the time he's fully redeemed again until they ruined the story in the last season. But like, we love those stories of like people that like seemingly can't be redeemed and they get redeemed. And like, what's crazy is like that redemption was so earned over the course of 6 or 7 seasons. I forget if I think it's in the 7th season. So earned over those seasons. Like, he's the guy who pushes a kid out of the window in the first episode of the show. Like, he's the enemy. He's the villain, like right from the get-go, right? And in 7 seasons later, he has this redemption arc that you believe and you're so touched by that took 70 hours of us watching this TV show. And it happens one time and we're like in tears and people are talking about how it's one of the best redemption arcs ever. And that's what God does for us every time. It's crazy. Like, it doesn't take 7 years of beating yourself up and improving as a man and doing all these things. Like, it's not just the mercy, it's the fullness of redemption. And he wants to do that every time that we go and we ask for mercy. And I've just kind of never really clicked those two things together. I don't think I've ever like doubted the Lord's mercy because I've seen him forgive people that, did worse stuff than me. Okay, great. Fantastic. Right. But I never really connected it with like the full redemption. I think redemption always kind of meant to me forgiveness, but not full restoration to where you were. And it's just crazy that I've missed this key part of Christianity my whole life.
Well, I mean, we say sometimes you can get mercy in as quick as 7 minutes. Like, I guess it just depends on how long it takes you to go to confession. But
Right, yeah.
I think that that's a really hard concept for a lot of people. I mean, I can't speak for all the converts out there. It's hard for me to believe that when I walk. It's hard for me to believe that when I walk into the confessional, Taylor, that I know that my sins aren't unique. I mean, I'm not that special. I know that we all pretty much sin in the same ways, sometimes more in other areas than others. But every time I walk in, I keep thinking, I feel like such a disappointment to God. Like, he's probably like, really, Kathryn? Again, we're going to do this again.
Right. Yeah.
But he's not like, we did this last week or the month before or whatever, but it's such an overwhelming love and restoration that I think takes a lifetime for us to even get a teeny glimpse of that. My hope is that when and if we all get to heaven, that we see the bigger glory. But it is I think it's a struggle of the human condition because we're taught that we can only be worthy, or even if someone forgives you, they don't really forget, So I think it's the forgetting part that we believe that, does God really wipe it clean and fully redeem it? He does, but that is a lifelong struggle, I think, for a lot of people, myself included.
Yeah. It's like, I have an incredible memory. And I would imagine God is better at that than I am. And somehow he isn't because he doesn't allow himself to be. It's this weird dichotomy thing. On a similar note, but kind of to what you're saying about the whole, like, really, Kathryn, we're doing this again. First of all, it's just funny that we think we're surprising him. Like we go to confession and he's like, you did what?
You did. Wait, hold on. Can you say that one more time? Because I'm shocked.
Where was I?
Right.
But I had this a similar realization, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, of like the benefit that we have of being post Christ. I think this was always true for everybody, but I think it might mean even more for those of us who are born after Christ. Even you, longer than 50 years ago. Like,
shut up. Keep going.
I forgive you, but I'll never forget that. So this idea that, like, when God sent himself, his son, to come to earth, he knew he was going to die, and he knew he was going to die for the sins that you've already committed and the sins that you're going to commit tomorrow. Like, he's already said, yeah, I'll do it. I'll make the deal. He didn't just die for the sins until you said, yes, I'm a Christ follower, or you got baptized, or you had your reconversion. It wasn't just the sins before that. It's like the last sin that you'll ever commit before you die. He's like, yeah, I knew it was coming, and I chose to do it anyway. Like, it's a huge part of the story that we just miss. He's just like, oh, God loved me enough to die for me, but then I sinned thrice more, and that was too many. It's like we can't surprise the guy. He knew it was coming 2,000 years ago, whatever before we were born.
Well, then he looks at Peter, who denies him 3 times, and he's like, hey, by the way, could you start this church for me? Like,
right. Yeah, exactly. Talk about a restoration of position. He didn't restore him to apostle. Right. He restored him to an even higher office. He's like, you talk about failing upwards. He got promoted for
I'm going to fall up on this one, Jesus. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's how promotions in the Catholic Church have gone ever since.
But the love is so unconditional, because our love as humans is so conditional. And so to hear and feel and know that something is unconditional takes a minute to really grasp.
Well, this was beautiful. We
went deep fast.
I know. We celebrated you and all of the fun that you've had, and we celebrated how the Lord spoke to me that one time. I think this is a great show. I'm really happy with it.
It's fun. It was fun.
All right. Well,
we're officially caught up.
Yeah, we are. I feel great. That's Kathryn Whitaker. She'll be back in a month. I'm Taylor Schroll. I'll be back next week. See ya. Thank you all for watching and listening today. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. We will be back very soon. Until then, check out all the other videos that we have on our YouTube channel. There is talks, there's music, there is pop culture videos, there's how to be a Catholic, there's Catholicism for idiots. There's all kinds of stuff on our channel. Go check it out. Until next time, love you.